So, hey, Leah, I sent you some topic ideas for the podcast. Did you get a chance to read them yet?
Yeah.
And you didn't reply, though.
That's because rejected. Yeah, you just got rejected. 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 You just got rejected.
I'm Lamont, and I try to accept everyone for who they are.
And I'm Leah. I only applied to one college because I didn't want to get rejected. And you're tuning in to the Lamont N Leah podcast.
So, if you haven't clearly connected today's topic from Leah's, rejecting me intro, today we're talking about normalizing rejection and handling it in an appropriate way. And to help us do that, I've invited business owner and book author Michelle Zellner, the author of You Revolution, The Journey of a Better Being. This is a 10-week lifestyle changing program aimed to help you improve any aspect of your life so you can become the healthiest human being you want to be. Today we'll be talking about rejection, hearing from others, sharing some of our own stories, and talking about how to be healthy in dealing with or handling rejection. Michelle, welcome to the Lamont and Leah podcast. We are so glad that you volunteered to talk about this subject and join us today.
Well, I tell you, I'm really excited to be here to talk about this subject because I don't think it's one we have a lot of conversations over. And as somebody who's lived a bit of a life and has probably had plenty of rejection, I think it'll be a very interesting conversation. So I'm excited to have it with you.
All right. So we are talking about rejection today, and hopefully we'll learn a lot. And I have a surprise for you and Leah, something that we haven't done on Lamont and Leah podcast before. So let's go ahead and just jump right in.
Actually,
jump right in?
before we get started, Lamont, can we have you introduce yourself, please, for our audience that may not know who you are?
Yes, for sure. So my name is Michelle Zellner, and I currently live in Denver, Colorado, via Hawaii, via Wisconsin. Leah and I just discovered we have a shared connection there. And I have a wellness business called Better Beings. It turns 25 years old in 2022. So started out literally like a million years ago as a personal trainer, and that's evolved into lots of different things. So currently what I mostly do is either one-on-one coaching and training, or corporate events, public speaking, corporate wellness trainings, conference speaking, that kind of stuff. I also do have an online platform, You Revolution University, which is your one-stop shop if you want to learn how to be a healthier, happier human.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah. And of course, we'll link everything down below, so you guys go ahead and check all those links out. All right, Lamont, I will let you get back to it.
All right. So, rejection is so hard and hurtful. And as I was putting this episode together in my mind, I had this overwhelming feeling that we need to hear from other people on this topic. I mean, I love myself and Leah, and we love our guests, but I was like, we need more input. So I reached out to some friends and family, and not everyone was comfortable sending me a video. So one friend, his name's Daniel, as well, because there's a different Daniel in the video, wrote out what he wanted to say because he just didn't want to be on screen. So he says, rejection to me means that you weren't desired or needed by someone or to an employer. Rejection stems from an individual's feelings that they weren't good enough assets or a good fit in a relationship or an employer or for an employer. It feels to me, though, you weren't enough and you feel a guilt that consumes your thinking, and that you were rejected because you were the problem. Rejection has a very negative meaning towards the user, or to us. Commonly, I have heard this word used by many individuals after going through a breakup, and the belief behind the word is that you were not enough.
I would say that probably sums it up for most of us. I would say, I know I've certainly had those feelings when I've been rejected from various people in various ways. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
All right, well, let's see what other people had to say.
To me, rejection is like being thrown away, as if you were nothing. All the time and effort, all the emotions you put into someone's life, as if it were nothing. It's a horrible feeling.
Rejection feels like to me, it feels like a heat that starts off in your chest, and it like slowly rises up your throat, and you can feel it through your ears, and it's this tingling and this heat, and then you physically have like a turning in your stomach, and constantly in your head you're thinking, what did I do? What did I do to make them say no? And did I do something wrong? Am I not good enough? Do they not love me anymore? Like I constantly get that in my head when I feel that sense of rejection, whether it be from somebody I love or for a project or a job that, you know, I want it desperately. You know, you feel as if you're not worth it when, you know, we're all worth it. We're all, you know, awesome in our own way. And it's hard to think of that when you've got this sense of dread from being rejected. And I'm an introvert myself, so it's like pretty much just an everyday, not everyday thing, but when it's anything important, I always get that, oh, am I going to be good enough? Am I going to be able to do this? Is it going to be a no? And you have to think, you know, what's worse than no, but still, it's like really hard. Yeah, so that's how it makes me feel, and that's the most, I guess detailed way I can describe that. Okay.
I feel as though rejection is kind of more similar to isolation. Because when it's like rejection, it's not quite the same as just being let down or being just told you can't do anything. Rejection's kind of similar to like, I guess the best way would be like rejection would be like kind of shattering the illusion that you would have of anything, because it's generally when a person is thinking about something, more or less I want to say, okay, well, a good example would be, well, or at least a decent example would be if you were having hopes to try and get into a college and then they tell you you can't go there. Generally that would be treated as rejection. But the effect of it isn't necessarily saying that you can't go to college or that you don't have the capability, but it is the rejection of the plans that you had or the thoughts that you had. So rejection more or less would be like the rejecting of your perception of reality, I guess you would say. Kind of like if you were hoping to be with a person and then you don't get with them, you may feel rejected, but there may be a reason. But in the end result,
well, rejection sucks, and for me, getting your heart broken and feeling like nobody gives a damn or even loves you. You know, I just feel like, you know, when somebody rejects me, it's like, what did I do wrong? Am I the one that's wrong? What, you know, is it how I look? Is it who I am? What's wrong with me?
Hi. Rejection to me means not being important or lacking the importance of something, whether it's like an idea, your assets, it just feels like you're not wanted for someone or something. And, that's fine. Rejection is common, happens a lot more than being accepted, to be honest. And it feels like the walls just close in on you. You start to like ask yourself why. Like, why was I rejected? Why me? Like, I'm important. Why? You just have to ask the question why, And it can make you feel very lonely sometimes. It feels like, why try if you're always going to be rejected, But you have to try to keep a positive mind, because there's always something out there, and you are valid. Everyone here is valid. And if they don't see it, then your assets are needed somewhere else, because everyone else is valid and everyone else is needed. The rejection part, though, it really feels like a punch in the face, It's like, here, like, work on yourself and then you'll be wanted. But rejection sucks. But once we get accepted, it's a great feeling.
Rejection is the feeling that what I offer is not valued or needed from another person, group of people, community, or organization. Rejection is one of those things that if you feel it, it can bring up a lot of uncomfortable emotions. For me, I felt rejection when I have taken on the responsibility of other people's actions or words and have used that to define myself as worthless or a problem. And that can be really challenging, because when you take on the responsibility of someone else, instead of evaluating the situation as a whole, it makes that person, in my example, myself, feel shame. And so rejection can also be a good thing. I have been rejected from jobs that, looking back on it, I would not have succeeded in that job. So I think rejection can be experienced in many different ways depending on how the person who feels rejection handles it.
Hi, my friend. So we're talking rejection, huh? Well, for me, rejection, it falls into two categories. There's rejection without merit, which I think is the most painful one our society contributes to our human experience. That's when we're rejected because of something we were born with, be it the color of our skin, our sexual orientation, the way we look, some of our innate personality traits that exist from birth. And then there's another side that's rejection with merit. I know there's definitely been jobs I've applied for that I wasn't qualified for, that's actually a blessing I didn't get, or men I would pursue that weren't interested, that if it would have come to fruition would have been horrifying for me. So I think there's two different kinds of rejection, that which is with bias and without concern, and then there's that is thought out. And I've come to learn that any form of rejection, as painful as it can also be beautiful and really sculpt your soul and change you into a more wise creation. Love you lots. Bye.
Moments of rejection that really shaped who I am ultimately. I think at one point when I used to feel rejection, because it hits you hard, like it just brings in this deep sadness, and I feel like it's brings back a lot of like the inner child wounding of just feeling like alone and lost, and it feels slightly different when I pay attention to how it feels in my body each time. But at one point I used to just put it on a shelf and just not think about it and just try to move on. But what I've noticed from all the years that I didn't feel it is that I have triggers that, like, different smaller situations, they remind me of rejection from high school or from things that I felt as a kid. So now I am trying as much as possible that when rejection comes to the surface, to let myself fully feel it, to ask myself what I need, to look at what that wound is from the past that felt rejected or unloved or not good enough, and to really like give some time to really heal that now. I feel like there's times as well where I'm able to see rejection from the vantage point of, well, that's a positive sign. I'm playing full out, that I'm not pleasing everybody anymore. Yes, of course, we're expecting rejection when we're being our best, boldest, most magnetic self. And so, I feel like I have some complicated, multifaceted views of it. But ultimately, I am always learning something now when I feel rejection and when I fully let it come into my body to see what it has to teach me and to show me. If you're feeling rejection at all, I just want you to remember that it's triggering something that's allowing you to know that you are now strong enough to heal it, that it's coming back into your experience because you might not have been strong enough or ready enough to heal it then, but you are now. So, mwah.
Okay, so I know that was a little bit of a long video. I try to get them to keep it to like 1 minute. But just knowing some of the people that I asked, I knew that was going to be impossible for them, but they had really good stuff to add. So, what stood out for you guys? What messages did you guys hear about rejection?
Well, I mean, I'll say I heard ones that I think probably at some point everybody feels, and I love the young lady who wrapped it up because ultimately, hopefully, when you do start to do the inner work, that is where you come to, that you recognize that rejection is part of life. You are never going to please everybody, fit in everywhere. And I think as you grow as your own human and you become confident in who you are, you you can take rejection not not personally, and sometimes it is personal, like the young man said, sometimes it's personal, but usually it's a reflection of the other person, not of you. But a lot of times there is a very great reason that you are being rejected, and looking at it from that other vantage point can usually help you kind of get through that a little easier in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah. I was really happy that not everyone was talking about like romantic rejection. Because that was something I was gonna point out today, is because when you think about rejection, I think most people think relationship wise, like romantic relationship. But I was gonna try and drive home the point that it's, elsewhere, like friendships, work. Someone mentioned college, which is a great one. So I'm glad we had some other viewpoints on that. But two of the things that stood out for me was, and sorry, I don't remember who said anything. I didn't write that part down. Okay. Someone said that rejection is when someone rejects your perception of how the reality should be, which I think is very interesting because we do get caught up in like how we want things to turn out. And then when things don't turn out that way, it's like, oh no, what's going to happen? So I really liked the way that was worded. And someone else said that you're taking on the responsibility of someone else's feelings, which is something that I've been working on personally, is remembering that how someone else feels about you, is not your responsibility to take care of. They need to work on their own feelings, and even if it sucks, like if they reject you or they turn out that they don't like you, then that's for them. You can't be concerned with how everyone is feeling, or else you're going to be overwhelmed. Didn't we just talk about that, Lamont?
Probably. I feel like we talk about things that overlap all the time.
It might have been in authenticity. Maybe. We were talking about that, I believe, like a little bit ago. But yeah, those are the two things that kind of stood out to me.
I was a little surprised that nobody mentioned that sometimes rejection can be used in a positive way, can be used to motivate or inspire you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say my very first awareness of rejection was when I was about 8 years old. I was trying out for a gymnastics team. It was a competitive team, and it was coached by a husband and a wife. And I made the team, but during that first practice, when we're told, oh, here's the new girls, here's, what your strengths are, here's your weaknesses. As the wife was going down and talking about each girl, she, stopped at me and she said, and they called me Shelly. Now, Shelly, Dale didn't really think you should be here. He didn't think you were good enough to be on this team. But I told him, oh no, this girl's got grit. She has passion. She wants to be here. But all my 8-year-old ears heard were, Dale doesn't think you should be here. Mm-hmm. So number one, rejection, but also rejection by a strong male figure. Mm-hmm. And as an 8-year-old, you don't know what that's going to do. No, in the moment, it did motivate me and inspire me to prove him wrong. And I did that. And my coaches and I had a very good relationship. Sometimes it was good cop, bad cop, but ultimately had a very good relationship with both of them. But as I went through life, there are things that, probably I did in certain behaviors, And it rooted back to being rejected by a strong male figure. I had a great family, so I had a great dad, but this coach, right, that was my very first experience with rejection. And it wasn't until much later that I understood, like, ooh, a lot of my stuff was actually rooted in that.
Yeah. I think a few people kind of hinted towards it, like it can be positive, but yeah, it can be motivating. I know.
Yeah, I mean, it can certainly be positive, because for sure, it's like somebody mentioned, I'm really glad that person I was pursuing was like, no, thank you, because it probably would have been a train wreck for me, right? So that's a positive. But I do think sometimes it can be motivating as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Shelly, you were talking about, like, I'm glad that person didn't pursue me, and the first thing that pops into my head is like Beyonce's "The Best Thing I Never Had." She's like, thank God I dodged a bullet.
Yeah. Yeah, and even for some old school people, Garth Brooks, unanswered prayers, right? You thank God for unanswered prayers, because here's this thing you really thought you wanted, and it turns out, ooh, if I had gotten that, all these other amazing things that I have in my life, I probably wouldn't have them.
Yeah, exactly.
What stood out for me was a lot of words that people use to describe rejection, and a lot, like, I picked up definitely on a lot of the negative, like lonely, not good enough, trash, unimportant, worthlessness, problem. And then I loved shame. And then I loved James, how he was like, there's some with merit and some without merit. And I was like, wow, that was so powerful.
Yeah, I had noted that down too.
And then, of course, you know, Ashley was just going to bring it. Like,
of course she did.
So, like, when she was like, I take it into my body and I let it tell me, like, I was just loving everything that she says, like, yes, Ashley, yes. Growing, you know.
Well, and I'd like to say, you know, all those things those people experience, that is all completely normal, because we're humans, right? And if you think about way back in the day, we belong to a tribe. We are supposed to belong to a tribe. And if you are rejected from that tribe, your survival is very much in danger, because the tribe is what keeps us safe. So if I've been ostracized from the tribe in some way, I'm probably not going to survive, because to be out by myself, I'm very vulnerable. And so that's why we have those feelings when we get rejected, right? It's totally normal. All of it is rooted in our survival mechanism. I think a lot of the things that we do to cope with rejection are also rooted in our need for surviving, right? We can retaliate, which means we get angry, or, you know, we lash out in some way, or we get more aggressive, like we do more, like, oh, that boy doesn't like me, well, let me do more to make him like me, right? Or maybe we conform. We were rejected, so, well, maybe I'll start to conform and be more like them, and then they'll accept me. Or maybe we withdraw, right? Oh, well, that doesn't feel good, so now I'm going to withdraw. I think somebody even said, why even bother trying when you just keep getting rejected? We might try to soothe or distract ourselves. So maybe somebody rejected me, well, let me go eat some ice cream, or let me go have a couple glasses of wine, or do whatever, right? Lots of things that we do. And so all of these are also rooted in our survival mechanism. And so I want people who are listening to this to understand that whatever you're feeling, it's totally normal. And the way you might be trying to cope with it is also totally normal. But at some point, hopefully we recognize that it might not be helpful and potentially could even be turning harmful. So understanding that rejection is something you're going to experience, and it can be very difficult, but also there's so much within ourselves to learn from and grow from it, to truly get to a place where you are living in alignment with your values, right? With your core guiding principles. And if we're doing things simply because we want someone to like us, or we're afraid to speak up because someone won't like us, well, that eventually starts to make us not feel good as individuals. And then that's going to affect us physically, mentally, and emotionally in so many ways.
Exactly.
Yeah, so let's talk about how a person does the rejecting and what that does to other people.
You're asking how to reject people?
Yeah, but
Here
like,
we go. Just kidding.
but like, not just how to reject people, but like, is there a better way to go about like rejection, or how? Or let's talk about and let's talk about the way people do go about rejecting people.
Well, I think I'm from a very different generation than you. And I know ghosting is a big thing with your generation and below. Am I right?
Yes.
It is.
That didn't used to happen with us because I grew up before technology. So, yes, I'm that old. We had to make a reservation to go to the computer lab at college. So, I think it's a lot different now because technology has made it very easy to reject somebody, right? You just ghost, you just ignore them.
You're like, bye. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that's kind. I don't know, but I would love to ask you: have either of you ever rejected someone?
I think so. I think so. And it's not an excuse. However, things in my like it had nothing to do with that person, but like things got overwhelming, and they just quickly became not a priority. And then I was confused about how I was feeling about them, and just didn't really. So I was being avoidant. So let's be honest, I was being avoidant, trying to figure out my feelings and stuff, and they end up being ghosted on accident. I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry. But yeah. So like the intent wasn't to like make them feel bad or whatever. It was just like I didn't communicate well, and there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
For me, I'm an extreme people pleaser. So I immediately think about like, okay, how is this going to make this person feel? What do I do to make them not feel so bad about what I'm about to say? And usually it's me putting up with like a lot of, I don't know, them trying to like fix stuff that can't be fixed. I mean, I didn't really want to bring like romantic examples, but that's the only one I can think of where I've rejected someone. But it was someone who wanted to stay in a relationship when I had no interest. And oh my God, how long? That went on for weeks. It took weeks to finally like get them to just like stop.
And so, like even being avoidant, like why was I being avoidant, right? Like, because I didn't want to say like mean and hurtful things. But how much more does ghosting hurt versus saying those mean things? Like it's like which one's gonna hurt more?
Yeah.
And you really have no idea, like depending on how that person takes it, right?
Yeah, I think just personally, whether it's a romantic relationship or it's a friendship or it's a business interaction, just close the loop, right? So there's no ambiguity. Just close the loop. Otherwise, we tend to make up stories. Well, maybe she didn't get my text. Maybe the email didn't go through. Maybe they just got so overwhelmed they forgot. So then we start, creating stories in our heads, and that makes us feel a certain way. And giving and receiving, that's why there's the cliche, breaking up is hard to do. Because I would say for the most part, most people don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. And yet when we are vague or we have a lot of gray area, people will interpret that as, oh, well, maybe there's a chance, right? Whether it's for the job or for the friendship or for the whatever, right? Oh, maybe there's a chance. So I have learned, and same thing, I would much rather be rejected than be the one to reject. I think it's just easier for me to be rejected than be the one to reject. And we're all going to have to do it, I think, at some point in our lives, whether you are, the hiring manager and you have to tell somebody, we chose somebody else, right? That's hard. And I think yet it's a good conversation to have rather than, well, we'll only call you if we're hiring you. Right? So I always am going to encourage people to close the loop on all ends. Communication is so important, and it can be done kindly and compassionately. And if you're the one receiving that rejection, take the pause, take the deep breath, and try to step back from it. And, maybe do a little bit of that inner work, maybe do the reflection. And if it is the rejection with bias, like the one young man was saying, that is on them. that is their own growth process to go through. That's not yours. And that falls under, you know, yeah, that sucks. Life's not fair. And there are still going to be people who do that.
Yeah.
But if it is that rejection with merit, then we can acknowledge that and say, okay, I understand it. I don't love it. Maybe there's a good reason for it and I'll learn that reason later, but I get it. And doesn't have any reflection that I'm less of a person. I'm just not the right fit for this, whether it's a relationship or a job or whatever.
Right. So I totally agree with you when you were saying that we don't want to hurt people. And more specifically, I'd rather be rejected than reject someone. So I'm going to share a story where I was in 8th grade and I was dating this girl that I really, really liked. And it got back to me that she wanted to break up with me, but I was having a hard time. So I was like, man, like, well, I don't want her to be unhappy, right? So I go to break up with her to make it easier on her, even though it was hurting the heck out of me. And she was like, oh my gosh, thank you, which really, really sucked
Thank
too,
you.
right? But then I found out she took it super hard later. And I was like, well, I wouldn't have even done it, but everyone was saying this, so I thought it had to be true, you know? Which I think part of it was true, but not really. And so years later, when we became adults and I was like, hey, what was that even about? What was going wrong? And she's like, to be honest, it was so stupid. I had started my cycle that day, for the first time, and I was just all over the place emotionally. So that's how that story ends. But yeah, 8th grade, young love, stupidness.
And yet real, right? Because that's where a lot of our character and our confidence and all of that stuff is developed or shattered. I mean, I will say similar. It was, a boy that I really liked, and he paid attention to me in 6th grade and 7th grade, and then kind of stopped in 8th grade, and then was paying attention to all the other girls throughout high school. And I was like, but why? I didn't get it. What did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? And those are things that then perpetuate. And maybe the more we reject, and it's kind of that, or get rejected, it's that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? There's something wrong with me. So what do I have to fix? Rather than saying, okay, I'm just not the right person for that person. Just like there's been plenty of people who are not the right person for me. And I think the sooner we get to that point in life where we understand we are never going to please everybody, just like people are not going to please you, and you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, whether it's a friend or intimate relationship or a job. It's really all the same. And understanding that that's all part of it. And so, taking again that step back when you're either rejecting or you're being rejected, recognizing that that's part of life. And we really do want to work on healthy coping skills, because rejection, no matter what it is, it's not fun. It isn't, right? And so it's really then about developing those healthy coping skills to move through that pain that I think is important for each human to get through, because you're going to be rejected. That's just life.
Yeah. So speaking of healthy coping skills, what are some healthy ways we can cope with rejection?
You beat me to the segue, Lamont. I was like, ooh, a way in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the perspective is always a good thing to have, right? To take that step back and look at it from the bigger picture. And it's hard to do when you're in the midst of it.
Right.
And, maybe to get a little outside perspective from other people, how do you view this? And it depends on what the particular situation is. And to look inward, right? Reflect and do a little introspection, because sometimes the rejection, while it might seem without bias or with bias, sometimes there is truth to what is being said. I mean, I know I've had friendships where, I've been told, well, it's because of this, this, and this. And I look at that and I'm like, I can see that. And I don't really
Mm-hmm.
like that about me, honestly.
Yeah.
Right. Because let's face it, we do things that ultimately sometimes when we look back, we're like, yeah, that I don't really like the way I presented myself, or
Mm-hmm.
the thing I said, or the way I handled that situation. So then that's up to me to choose if I want to learn and grow, and what do I need to work on personally. Not that I'm trying to fix myself or to conform to what somebody else is telling me I should do, but are there opportunities for me to improve, evolve, in some way, to really learn how to navigate different situations. And it is totally natural to be defensive. I mean, I'll give you an example just in my profession. When I'm teaching, I could be facilitating a workshop for 50 people, and 48 of them will say really amazing things, and 2 people will be like, and one of them will be like, shh.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she was awful, and she did this, and I couldn't believe she said that, and she was this. And it doesn't matter that the other 48 had really great things. I am honing in on that one. And
Mm-hmm.
that is like, oh my gosh. And I used to take that so personally. And I used to think, I can't believe that person thinks that. How could they do it?
Mm-hmm.
What did I do? How am I going to change to make sure I don't do that again? And some of what they said was valid. Like, oh, I didn't even know that someone could interpret what I said in that way.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what you don't know. So instead of getting defensive and like, oh, that person's crazy and I'm going to dismiss what they say, I will always take it. And then I'll decide, what do I do with the information I'm being given? Some of it was valid. Some of it, I have a feeling, is probably more of a reflection or a projection of their own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, if I had 48 people who said those things and only 2 who were like, oh my gosh, that was the best thing ever, well, then I would look at that in that way too, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think the ability to really look at the information you've been given, and that's why I think empathetic and compassionate rejection, when you are the one delivering the message, it can be used in a really productive way, right? So going back to my gymnastics, when she said, well, Dale didn't think she's strong enough, she doesn't have the innate talent. Okay, I'm not strong enough. Well, guess what? I can get stronger. Do I have the innate talent? No, I didn't. That's a fact. So he wasn't wrong. He was telling the truth. But what can I do about that? I mean, I can't do anything about my innate talent, but I can work harder. And so that maybe I work harder and I get to be as good as somebody who has innate talent but doesn't work as hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I can use that information in a positive way. But I do think we can all learn how to deliver that in a kind, compassionate, empathetic way. But you also have to be open to receiving that. And sometimes we don't want to hear it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably one of the biggest problems, is that we're not open to it, or we're not ready for it, or it comes across a certain way and we just put up our defenses because we're hurt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know quite a few people. Are they friends? They're more acquaintances than anything. But I know quite a few people that get really stuck on the rejection part of things, to where like they can't move on from stuff, and they bring that same feeling into the next opportunity. Most of the time it's a relationship. They're like, oh, I got rejected again, it must be because of this. And then the next time I hear about it, they're like, oh, I knew it was because of this, because I'm XYZ. I'm just like, you gotta just push past that. So I guess that's a good question, is like, what is a way to push past something like that? Like, what do you guys think that means? Like, I've tried to like talk to them before, but they just get so caught up in the, oh, it's me. It's these bad things about me. So what can we say for people like that?
So, again, like, so we're focusing on like healthy ways to cope with rejection. I would say be honest. I think now Ashley hit on the head when she was like, take it in.
Mm-hmm.
Take in that feeling, and don't only just take in that feeling, name what that feeling is. Notice how intense that feeling is, and then just acknowledge it to yourself. Like, yeah, that hurt. Why did it hurt? Be curious about it. I keep saying this, like, be curious, like, dig into it. And then when we're curious, it keeps us out of the judgment, so we can really examine what's going on and be honest with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Leah, to your point, sometimes we maybe unintentionally seek out the very thing that we know is going to reject us.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Because then we can say, we'll see, and then we don't have to do anything, right? It's just the way it is. Because what if I sought out something else that would actually accept me?
Mm-hmm.
What would that do? Now I'm accepted. I've never lived a life where I've been accepted. I don't even know what that is. I don't know how to be. I only know how to be rejected. And so sometimes I think it could be very unintentional. It can be a little bit subconscious that we're doing it. But if you are somebody who feels like you get rejected because of the same thing over and over and over, well, there must be something that's drawing you to people who will reject you for those same things. And so what is that? Is it fear of success? Fear of success is a very real thing, right? It really is. And I know a lot of people maybe have never heard of it or don't even think that that could be possible. And yet, if I am successful, well, now that means I have to continue to do these things. And this is hard, right? Versus, oh, if I'm rejected, well, then I can go eat or drink or woe is me or isolate or whatever, right? The coping mechanisms that we've turned to. So, and I've been there too, where, oh, why does this keep happening to me? Well, then I had to look at me, because what's the common thread? Me. Mm-hmm. I'm the common thread in all of those situations. So, okay, maybe there is work I have to do. Maybe I keep seeking out, controlling relationships because I felt abandoned wherever at some point or rejected, and it feels good to be controlled. Oh, that means they love me. And yet, no, this is actually a different kind of thing. Yeah. So a lot of times what we do in the future, especially when it comes to friendships and intimate relationships, is because of unhealed wounds and trauma from some point. And it doesn't have to be major trauma. I don't consider the coach saying, oh, she isn't good enough. That's not trauma. And yet it was traumatic for my first experience of 8 years old to be rejected in that way, right? Yeah. So we internalize things in different ways. And until you get to the root and the source of that pain, we're just going to continue to look for Band-Aids, put a Band-Aid, put a Band-Aid, put a Band-Aid. And it's probably not going to work out healthy in the long run.
Yeah. So continuing to be honest, one way I think to cope with that is to stick with the facts, right? So I think we get emotional or we get too sensitive, which is allowed, but then we start telling ourselves those stories that you were talking about, and then we, what's it called? Diverge from what is actually happening. So learning to bring yourself back to the facts. We're wait, well, what was exactly said? Mm-hmm. And maybe not what did they mean by this, but okay, this is what was said. Let's stick to the facts. How does that make me feel, and what am I going to do about it?
Mm-hmm. True.
Yeah. I'm kind of, as a almost 49-year-old, I'm currently going through what I would call rejection. It has to do with a very, very long time dear friend of mine since we're 3. She was my very first friend, really. She's my longest lasting friend. And I have been feeling incredibly rejected by her. And I'm guessing she doesn't even know. And it mainly because I've given her a pass for decades, because she has a very full life, an incredibly busy life. And I give a lot of grace to people who have that life, because mine isn't as busy. So I get that as far as the specific time and energy, I have more to give than somebody else does. So when there are people who are really important to me, I will give them that grace. However, when I am the only one making effort, it's never reciprocated. It's never initiated. It's never, coming organically from the other side. Then that starts to feel like I'm of no value anymore, right? And so reach out, have the conversation. Oh my gosh, no, I'm so sorry, just busy. Yes, of course, blah, 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 blah. And yet your actions say otherwise. So at some point, when the actions don't match the words, now what, right? Now, what am I going to do? Well, it's not somebody I'm going to cut out of my life, but I have to now evaluate, do I really want to keep on giving all this energy, giving? And I mean, at this point, I don't. And it's sad. It's very hard for me to do that because it's a loss that I have to cope with. And it is rejection because I'm no longer important enough for you to think about organically on your own to just reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? And that hurts, right? It does. And especially when it comes from somebody that you never, ever thought that would come from.
Yeah.
So, you know, it can come in all shapes and forms at all points in your life. And yet it's up to me now to decide how much do I want to keep allowing that to happen, because I am allowing it to happen. If I continue to give, and then I get mad because it's not being returned.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that you're talking about taking responsibility for your actions, knowing like what is in your power. I do have the power to continue in the same way, or the power to change it and maybe not give so much. So I guess my major concern is for the people that beat themselves up, that have so much negative self-talk, who judge themselves and maybe others, and just live in that space. I would want them to find ways out of that negative self-thinking, make reforming that negative self-thinking and making it a priority to like make it more positive, more realistic.
Like I said, I think some people just get so caught up in it, and it makes me sad because I mean there was a point where I was like that too, and I was like, I don't want to be that person's like, okay, you just have to get over it.
Right.
But no, as someone who's like, yeah, like as someone who's gotten over it, sometimes it's just kind of like, oh, if I could just put it in your brain, like just put it in there, like you're not that and you're great.
Give them the resources.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Leah, I don't think it's healthy or helpful to ignore the way you feel, right? I think you should feel what you feel, acknowledge those feelings. But at some point, is this helpful?
Yeah.
How is this helping me? Right. And believe me, I've been in woe is me phase. I went through a really difficult situation with, I mean, he's now an ex-husband, and I was woe is me, and I was, don't talk to me, don't look at me, I don't want to have eye contact with anybody. Like, I'm going to head down, do my work. Life is fine. I'm fine. Move on. Let's go. And so to ignore and pretend that everything's okay when it's not, that will help. That's a coping mechanism, and that will help when you're in survival mode. But at some point that becomes not only not helpful, but now becomes harmful, because to stew in that means you cannot possibly grow and move forward. And energy is very, very fluid and transferable. And when you are in negative energy, you are giving that off, and you are attracting it and inviting it back into your life. And so the hard choice, I always say the healthy choice is the hard choice. The hard choice, when you recognize that, okay, if I want something different, I have to do something different.
Right.
I have to behave differently. And maybe that just starts with my own attitude. Yeah. And that might actually require a lot of deep work. Some people do have to go through a lot of deep healing. And we don't want to do that because it's yucky and it's messy, and we'd rather just have the quick fix Band-Aid. But that's not really the way life works. And so, you know, for some people, it is about learning to, first of all, figure out what the trauma and the wound is and where did it come from. And then, okay, how to go about healing it, not how to put a Band-Aid on it, but how to actually heal it. And that might be learning to forgive, right? Learning to let go of guilt, of anger, of shame. We have to, and those are things we have to learn to let go of, because they are naturally ingrained in us, because it's all rooted in survival. So it might, for some people, be a really difficult process of healing in that journey. For some people, it might be relatively easy. It just depends on what the situation is. But for almost everybody, it requires a little bit of that work to truly move forward and to get to a different place with getting through rejection and being somebody who can deliver rejection in a kind, compassionate, empathetic way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one tool you can use if you're in that like negative headspace is like maybe give yourself credit for trying or give yourself credit for something valid, right? Think about what you're good at and what's good about you. When we're like down in that yuckiness and we're trying to like climb our way out, I think those are a couple of tools that could help give us some perspective and maybe get into a curious mindset and then really like examine what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any way to start changing the narrative, right? It's natural to be negative. That is normal, but it takes a lot of hard work to change the narrative. And that means you have to first, if you can't give me 10 things off the top of your head that are good about you, that would be a good starting point. And if you truly don't believe there are 10 good things about you, there's some really deep work and healing that probably has to happen, because you have been wounded in a lot of ways if you really can't find 10 good things about yourself.
Yeah. So if you're listening, list 10 great things about you, good things about you. Leah and I, we want to know. We want to know. And if you're struggling with this can be a tool that helps you grow. Seek out people that you trust and see how they view you. And then take that in and see if that works for you.
And then another way to cope with rejection, I know we talked about this earlier, but I just want to bring it up again, is use it as motivation. I'm petty like that too, though. I'm like, oh, you said I can't? Well, here we go.
I love people like that. I love people like that. Like, yeah, it might be a little bit petty. Like, yeah, you might be a little angry or mad. Yes, that anger might be fueling you, but in the end, I do believe you grow from it. And then when you like let all that anger, all that frustration go, and you've achieved your goal, you're like, you know what? Hey, it got me there. You know.
I'll say I used a little bit of that. There was a girl in school, and I was under her spell. I was a follower. I was very much a sheep. I had very little confidence, and I just believed everything she did and said, and that really destroyed me in a lot of ways. And when I woke up and really learned the truth about it, that was motivation for me. And a lot of the things that I did that were positive were simply to prove her wrong.
Mm-hmm. I think I moved from like a constant, like you said, woe is me sort of situation straight to just like petty. Is this growth? I don't know.
You know what? The awareness that you're doing it and the awareness of for you to say this is totally petty, that's it. So I think it's fine.
It's my favorite.
She's like, I found this tool. It works for me. I'm sticking with it.
Yes. I'm not sad anymore now. I'm just petty.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. I think we have covered a lot, said a lot. I loved everyone who turned in a video for me, like last moment Friday night. I was like, hey, can you do this for me? And you guys got on it and you got it in. Thank you guys so much. I think it's time for a break.
Yes, let's go get some water. Alrighty, Lamont. Today's activity is short and sweet. You know those little things you see on Facebook that's like your favorite whatever says about you?
Like, is that the thing that goes over your head and then like pops up?
No. Well, I mean, there's been a few filters like that, but I mean, like, your favorite Starbucks drink says this about you, or your Zodiac says this about you.
I may not be familiar about it, but I'm excited about the activity.
They're just little images. They don't really mean anything, but I thought that'd be interesting to do today, to see what our favorite things say about us. And are they true? I guess that's going to be the question. How true are these?
Okay. It says, what's your ice cream flavor says about you?
All right. So the different ice cream flavors. And Lamont, you can tell me which one. We have vanilla, strawberry, chocolate, French vanilla, chocolate fudge brownie, rum raisin, salted caramel, chubby hubby, rainbow sherbet, coffee, Irish coffee, chocolate chip cookie dough, birthday cake, bubble gum, and green tea.
So, Leah, I like a strawberry swirl. So, a strawberry swirl is just vanilla and strawberry.
So let's read both. Let's see if they're true. Okay, so let's start off with vanilla. Your favorite color is beige.
That is not.
All right, and then strawberry, you're pretending this is fruit.
How rude. Strawberry is fruit. And I do not pretend that the ice cream is fruit. The ice cream is ice cream.
Okay, so my favorite is green tea, actually.
Ooh, I knew that. I knew that.
And it says you're missing the point of ice cream. This is true.
Wow. Rude.
Followed very closely by chocolate.
Good.
Yeah, it is good.
What's the chocolate
That's
say?
why I like it. And chocolate says you know a good thing when you taste it.
Okay. Okay. That's like a decent one, but I think this is like ridiculous.
This is biased and untrue. Lamont and Leah podcast not approved.
Rejected.
Rejected. Okay, next one. What your favorite color says about you. Lamont, what's your favorite color?
Silver. And
Silver.
gray is not silver.
Gray is not silver. So what do we do?
I don't know. Let's just choose gray and white, I guess.
Okay, let's do gray and white. Gray, withdrawn, introverted. Okay, so no, not gray. And white, calm, peacemaker. No.
I can be a peacemaker. I can be calm. Sometimes.
What is your second favorite color? Let's see.
Black.
Black, cynical, mysterious, intelligent. None of these are true for Lamont.
That's... I am too intelligent.
Well, I mean, intelligent, yes.
And I'm mysterious.
No, you're not.
For some people, they're like, I don't understand you. I don't get you. How can you be so passionate for everyone in the world? It's a mystery. I can be sick and cold depending on what it is.
All right. Well, I don't know. They don't have silver on here, so it doesn't count.
I wonder what silver would say.
I don't know. For me, black. So cynical, mysterious, intelligent.
Which those are all true as well.
Yes. Followed by, I don't know, it depends on my mood. Blue and green are very interchangeable, as you can see with my hair. Blue says calm, sensitive, patient. Sensitive, yes. Calm, no.
Sometimes.
No.
Rarely.
Patient, not
You
at
can
all.
be patient. You can.
And then green says gentle, sincere, passionate. Those are all true.
Gentle. I guess so.
gentle.
You're not really violent, so
I'm not violent. I'm just a lot.
Yeah, and then you're definitely sincere and you're definitely passionate.
Okay, so this one doesn't get too rejected. A little bit. I don't know how I feel about it. Okay, next one. What your sleeping position says about you. So we have sleeping on stomach, sleeping on your back, fetal position, sleeping on your side, or multiple sleeping positions. Lamont, how do you sleep at night?
Tend to sleep on my stomach or side. My favorite position, if I'm going to sleep on my back, is like my hand behind my head. I'm pretty sure I picked that up from Dawson's Creek.
Trying to be sexy or something?
I don't know. That's how Dawson would always sleep.
Okay, so what would you say your sleeping position is, though?
Probably back inside. Back inside.
Back inside.
No, not
okay.
back inside. Stomach inside.
Stomach.
Stomach
Okay,
inside.
so stomach means you're closed off.
Lies.
Side means you're balanced.
I work on that. I try.
For me, I sleep on my side. So balanced. But you know what? I was reading, because it's a whole article, it's not just an image. I I like what it says about sleeping on your side. It says this position is a combination of back and fetal. It's quite literally balances you out. If you sleep like this, you're all about maintaining balance in bed and in life. According to a survey conducted by Sealy, an UK mattress manufacturer, people who sleep on their left side tend to work in marketing and advertising. Right side sleeping is favored by those who work in transport and manufacturing. I sleep on my left side. I do work in marketing.
And I don't work in marketing, so.
I mean, you market for us.
No, I guess. I sleep on my side because I'm fat. Like, it's more comfortable to do it that way. I think I actually would prefer to sleep on my back. So what does back say?
Confident.
Oh. So if I didn't have weight problems, I probably would be sleeping on my back.
Lamont, you're confident. And I am balanced, supposedly. All right, last one. What your birthday says about you. Lamont was born in August. You were born in August.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's what it says. You were born in August.
Oh, well, yours is February.
Yeah, so this one was just a joke I thought was funny. Okay. It's like what your birthday says about you. January, born in January. February, born in February, etc. Alrighty, enough of my dumb jokes. Let's get back to the actual subject at hand.
All right. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the Lamont N Leah podcast. It has been a great conversation. You have been so insightful. I love the compassionate piece that you really brought in because Leah and I are about being compassionate. So thank you so much.
Well, it's been my pleasure and a fun conversation, and absolutely kudos to all those who provided a video. I know it can be a hard topic to speak on, especially, when it's very personal and can be raw and difficult. So I think the more open and honest we are about having these conversations, the easier it is, because what I know, having done what I do for years and being where I am in life, is we are all very much more alike than we are different. And if we can share those experiences and, hopefully that can help other people along the way, I think personally, that's what I strive to do. And obviously, with what you all are doing with your podcast, that's what you do as well. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I know we already went over your contact information, but let's just go ahead and list those again. If someone wanted to get in contact with you to either further the conversation or talk about something else or get more information about you do, where can they reach out?
Well, thank you. Yeah, my website is the best place, betterbeings.net. And there's a contact me form. You can go there. You can see all the things I do, the books I've written, the online courses I have. So that would be the best place. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so make sure you guys check out all the links in the description. We always put them there. So if you are interested in any of the things, any of the people that we are speaking to, make sure to check out the description for all their contact information.
Right. And Michelle, are there any special projects that you are working on that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I would say the biggest one that has been on my vision board and happy to get to check it off is I did officially launch U Revolution University. And as I mentioned earlier, that is basically the online access to everything I teach and train on. And I think it's your one-stop shop. If you want to learn how to be a healthy, happy human, I cover everything from nutrition to exercise to attitude and mindset, goal setting, sleep, stress management, hormones. I mean, it's all there. So I encourage people to go check it out. I'm pretty excited about it. And you can just join the U Revolution and then, be a student to further your own level of growth. I think that's the place to go.
That sounds like an incredible resource.
Yeah, definitely. All right. And finally, is there any message that you would like to share from your heart that you just want people to know? It doesn't necessarily have to be about today's topic, but just something that you think people should think about.
Yeah, I think as I've evolved into a healthier, happier human, there are a couple things that I know I have learned along the way, and I'm passionate of sharing those things. And for me, one of them was if I wanted to be better, I had to do better. So I really did look at my own actions, my behaviors, how I was showing up in my own life. And a part of that was to get very clear on my goals, my values, and my priorities. And
Mm-hmm.
I teach a lot of classes on that, and people struggle to put real words to that. So I would say, start there. Be very clear. What are your goals, values, and priorities? What matters to you? What is important to you? And then evaluate if you're spending your time, money, and energy in ways that align with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not, you're going to feel very disconnected. And if you recognize that you're not, then what do I need to do differently? Another one that every situation, no matter what it is, it's hard now or harder later. So I have worked hard to make the hard choice now to avoid harder later, and just embrace this journey of life with an open mind, with kindness for yourself and others, with patience for yourself and for the process, but always striving to be open to learn, to grow, to evolve, what I would call to be a better being.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you to our viewers and listeners, and we'll see you next week.
Today's life lesson is be a champion. Champions believe in themselves, even when no one else does. Believing in ourselves is an amazing way to love ourselves. And love always wins. So, there you are. Be a champion, honey. And that is today's life lesson.